Hi all, our notable game today follows the evolution of chess style. Historically, let's go logically to the Saltsjöbaden Interzonal in 1948. At this point, the system of zonal and interzonal tournaments was not yet firmly established. The participants of this first interzonal were selected by FIDE based on zonal performances. So from Budapest 1948 came Szabo and Gligoric. From Hilversum 1947 arrived Ludek Pashman and Trafinovic. And from Helsinki 1947 came the co-winners Buk and Stolz. From Quebec 1947 came the winner Janowski. And from Mar del Plata 1948 arrived Najdorf and Stolberg. From New York 1946 came none, all declined or could not come. The Soviet players were also picked by FIDE, partly based on the Moscow 1947 tournament. Steiner was chosen to represent Australia, and O'Kelly and Alcalzes were replaced by Pearce in London. The plan was that the top 5 from this special Saltsjöbaden tournament, and 5, or as it turned out 4, losers of the FIDE World Championship Tournament 1948 will compete in the Budapest candidates of 1950. But on the 12th of August, before the penultimate round, FIDE decided that 9 players could go to the candidates. So this was to help sort out the players for the candidates tournament, to find a challenger for Mikhail Botvinnik. And David Bronstein really excelled in this tournament. Here is a very, very important game against Laszlo Szabo. He was helped having the white pieces, and that's usually seen as an advantage. Let's have a look. So I believe this is round 10, 30th of July 1948. E4 from David Bronstein. We see a French defence from Szabo. And the Tarrasch variation. And now the unusual knight c6. With knight c6, black is often trying to actually attack the head of the pawn chain if white ever advances. With e5, with f6, that's quite a common idea, rather than the base of the pawn chain. So it's deliberately blocking in the c-pawn. This is a featured opening in Watson's Dangerous Weapons in the French defence, actually, and I've tried it myself quite a few times with some success, especially in Blitz and Rapid. It's quite a fun, novel system to try out. We see here knight Gf3, knight f6, provoking white to go forward with tempo. And yeah, black's idea is usually to try and liberate with f6, open up the pieces, maybe get the bishop later to d6, and have an active position. But a very, very strong system here was played by white as an antidote. Bronstein chose knight b3. And nowadays it's been worked out, it seems that a5 is the most common way to tackle knight b3. It's strengthening the centre and central squares. A5 would seem to be the way to go, not f6 here. For example, like this, where black is not committing actually to f6 and is trying to avoid any structural damage. This a5 facilitates knight a7. I know it looks weird, but this is a way of playing the position for black, which is thought to be about equal in live book. That's a way of playing it for black. But here we see, unfortunately, maybe a little bit too committal at this point, f6, because although white would normally think about deploying the bishop to d3, and maybe with some preparation, c3 is not needed as preparation here because the bishop's not going to d3 anyway. Bishop b5 helping exert pressure on the central squares and inflicting structural damage. It will also justify knight being on b3, not just defensively, but if there's double pawns there, then there's knight a5. So this seems to be a very, very strong antidote system. Yes, black did now lose time with the move a6. It's already a little bit difficult to play now that f6 has been played here. This position, if black tries f takes, this is just a pleasant position for white. Knight bd4, it's small advantage for white. So using that d4 square, it's pressure on e6. It's a little bit unpleasant, but anyway, black maybe compounding things a little with a6. He's not developing any pieces, Structural damage is now inflicted, and there's a knight a5 resource available. White doesn't use knight a5 here because bishop b4 check. But white gets out of the check, and now is knight a5 is on the cards here. This is awkward. Black plays c5. This is a resourceful attempt in this position against knight a5, among other things. Let's have a quick check here why it can be considered resourceful from Szabo. In this position it seems c6 maybe just about okay. And if knight takes, then that's a blunder. Queen here. And black's doing well. But in this position, again, this is overall this is a very strong antidote combination from David Bronstein against a novel system. He actually plays against this potentially weakened diagonal when black plays f6. He plays c4, so putting pressure on d5 as well. d5 is a little bit vulnerable now that c5 has been played. The diagonal might be vulnerable in the future. D takes c4 now, and here knight a5 is played. This is looking unpleasant because knight c6 threatens to win the queen. Checkmate the queen. You have bishop e7, knight c6. Ouch. Black plays knight b6. David Bronstein is not going to let black off the hook here. He plays e takes f6. We have the queen going to f6. And it's unfortunate here. It's a subject of another important tempo gainer. And we see that with d takes c5, not only hitting the knight, but bishop g5 threatens, then queen d8 check. This is not the sort of position you want with the black pieces against one of the strongest players in the tournament, David Bronstein, or proven to be later. Queen f5 was now played. Okay, there's a kind of pin on the knight on a5 here. David Bronstein is interested in a king hunt. Plays bishop g5. Queen takes c5. He gets his queen d8 check in. King f7. And yes, this is a very, very interesting position with the knight hanging on a5. Is white being overconfident here? Can you guess what David Bronstein plays in this position with the knight hanging on a5? If I give you 5 seconds starting from now to pause the video. Okay, a powerful centralizing move, rook ad1. Yes. You'll also note here, I mean, in this position, knight c6 is also technically possible as well. It's just a very bad position. Knight c6, because if queen takes, knight e5 check. And if that's ignored, then this is nice for white. But this move might even be like, it's actually technically stronger, in fact. What's going on here? You might think, well, okay, take the knight. If the knight's taken, it wasn't actually. Bishop b7 was played, which essentially loses a piece. Yes, that's how bad the position is. But let's see, why is this the case? Why can't we take the knight? Well, queen takes c7 check. Not only checks the king, but supports knight e5 now. Here, knight e5 threatens queen f7, checkmate. And in this position here, maybe David Bronstein had seen all this. There's a fantastic resource for white in this position, which is crushing, really. Absolutely crushing. Can you see what white can do in this position? The two rooks are disconnected. It's attacking... it's an instructive material position for the attacking player, actually. What can white play in this position if I gave you 5 seconds? Variation of the game, very important one. white to play. Okay, bishop f6, it's just incredibly strong. If g takes, then queen f7 mate. And if black tries to wriggle out, then the bishop and queen are pointing at g7. Rook d8 threatens, then rook takes and queen takes mating. If queen d5, rook takes f8. It's just really bad for black. What does he do here? He's in a terrible bind. Yeah, it's a pretty bad position after rook d8. The defensive resources are pretty limited. Actually, we've got 4 attacking pieces against the king here. I mean, it's just 100% check this for defensive resources. The best is given as queen d5. If rook b8, well, we can just take that actually, and if ever takes, go back, and then take here, and then actually win material maybe. Knight takes c4 as well. Starting to dismantle black. Yeah, the exchange up, etc. So yeah, black is in a desperate state here. Also, if black plays, maybe king j might be the best, but this position, this sort of thing is just not good either. White's got loads of attacking pressure, and if black's giving up that knight, this is just good for white. This whole variation here, it's just good for white. Ends up better for white. White's the exchange up here. So essentially, black plays bishop b7. Yeah, and it's kind of, yeah, committing to losing a piece. Knight takes b7 because white is attacking the queen. By taking the piece, is also attacking the queen. So here we have knight takes c5, and the problem is the rook's attacked. Now here we have the move rook d5 being played. You might think, can black not play rook takes d1 here and then try and take further material after that? Yeah, rook d5 was actually played. Let's check here. There's a problem in this position. White can do better than rook takes d1. Knight e5 check. Where's the king going? And now, unfortunately, the knight's covering this knight, as well as this knight's covering d7. f7, all the exit squares are cut off. Rook takes d1. Which means now, actually, that bishop takes c5 would lead to rook d8 check, mate. Yeah. So, unfortunately, yeah, knight e5 check. I mean, if here, then this position is not good either. Here black's losing material. So yeah, black is losing a piece basically. He plays rook d5, knight e4 is played, bishop d6. So Bronstein has created a decisive advantage against this novel knight c6 French defense. Bishop c1, knight a4, takes, a3, it just needs to squash black's counterplay here. b3 kicking the rook. Rook d3 wants to get black's c3 pawn. Black defends that. Bishop e3, yeah, it's easier to play a piece up in chess. Some simplification now coming up soon. Bishop's going to be swapped off. Check. It's really a case of being a piece up for just one pawn. Knight d4, threading knight c6, etc. Tying down the rook for a moment, forcing e5 concession. b6, the pawn is pinned. After rook b2, b7 here, actually black resigned. Now obviously he's a piece down. This is a point to resign. It's approaching move 40. Maybe a Germans and stuff. They're quite popular at the time, the Germans. So black resigned here. If rook b8, yeah, it seems as though white is losing that pawn potentially here, but engine suggests this is the move. Give up the pawn. And this position, black's under real pressure with 2 threats. Also, well, rook takes e5 as well. What does black actually play here? If king e7 here, it's going to be end of the game soon. If something like this, knight g5, white's essentially a piece up. He's going to be getting material pretty soon. That's as an example. This position as an example. If d5 as an example, knight c5, white's going to be using his piece up to start gobbling up pawns, etc. Essentially, yeah, you can't be a piece down at this level. Okay, so yeah, b7, black decided to resign there. So yes, this is like the first unofficial interzonal which David Bronstein really dominated. He actually went through without a single defeat in this tournament. So it really was the rise of David Bronstein as a player, as a personality. And a very creative one. It seems against novel systems, he had a fully comprehensive, powerful system which you could use even today, actually. And this is back in 1948. He's played a very nasty looking anti-knight c6 French defense system based on this Tarrasch knight going to b3, bishop pinning the knight, structural damage. Disaster for black. Must have thought, oh my word, I can't play a novel system against David Bronstein without being smashed up. Yeah. Okay, comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.